Hey there, everybody. It is Dr. Steve here with Kineci, and this is Understanding Your Pain, and we're going to be talking about shin splints today. So shin splints are, well, on the shin, but it's when you're running and there's a lot of pain and it's kind of this pulling, tearing kind of sensation that can be really debilitating, and very often it can be where at first you're okay for the first few steps and you can get kind of warmed up and run a little bit, and then it gets really sore in the front afterwards, kind of all up along the front of the shin, and can really hobble you and make it hard to walk, hard to move, where very often it's after you stop the activity that it feels like it gets worse. And even sometimes the next morning after an activity and you've been doing stuff and you get up and go to move and oh, ouch, it's painful. And a big part of what's happening is those muscles in the front of the shin there, they're getting overworked and they're struggling. And so often what happens is a bunch of inflammation starts to feed into these areas in the compartments in the shin or in the calf, has all of these thick fascial compartments that separate the muscles. And when inflammation starts to build up in there, it's a whole lot of extra fluid in a very tight closed container, and that creates a lot of pressure that'll make things hurt. In extreme cases, and where they want to do something called a compartment syndrome surgery, the surgeons will want to go in and actually cut a little hole or slice the fascia to release that pressure. Ooh, that's really severe. You don't want to do that. You want to avoid that at all costs if possible. That needs to be only preserved as a limb saving, muscle saving. If the nerve is dying kind of thing, then you go to that extreme state. But once they cut open into your fascia and make a little hole, things aren't so great. So we want to avoid that. Now, where do shin splints come from and what the heck is going on? It has to do with the mechanics of everything, the whole kinetic chain and how all the parts work together. So I'm going to come in a little bit. And so on the foot model, one of the things that we really need to do, and this model doesn't move 100%, but we need the foot to pronate, and that's when the arch sort of collapses down to adapt to the surface. And then we need it to supinate, where the arch lifts up. And it's that supination where the arch is lifting that it puts the ankle joints into a position where they're more rigid and they're more solid for propulsion moving forward. So what often happens is when there's a limitation or a restriction in the foot being able to supinate and pronate, that leads to where the body isn't propelling itself quite as efficiently off of that back leg, and what ends up happening is then the front foot has to catch you a little bit early. Now, the muscles on the front of the shin, if I give you this example, the muscles on the front of the shin, when the foot hits the ground, and particularly in the heel striking running kind of pattern, the foot hits the ground, the heel hits down, these shin muscles are controlling the descent of the front of the foot down to meet the ground, and that's where a lot of the issues come into play. The foot's hitting the ground and those muscles are having to control that plantar flexion faster than they want to, and with the mechanics being a little wonky, not all the friends are helping out doing their fair share of the work, and that leads to more strain on that shin bone and on the muscles, the anterior tibialis and the extensor hallucis. That's the big toe muscle that brings the big toe up. So those are the guys that are most often painful when there's the shin splints going on. But the big thing that we need to work on is the mechanics of all of those parts together. Now, the other piece of the kinetic chain kind of story, that there's the supination where the arch is lifting and the pronation where the arch is collapsing, but that connects with the whole leg. So when this foot is the back foot in gait, we need internal rotation of this back hip because the pelvis is coming around the corner. It's creating internal rotation for this hip. That is rotating the leg to create that supination where the arch is lifting, the ankle joints get more solid, and then it's that better stable base from which to propel forward. So when there's a limitation in the internal rotation of the hip, that will feed down into the foot and ankle and create problems and make it so that it's not supinating quite as well, and that will lead to the other side catching the body a little bit quicker, the shin getting sore and unhappy. So here's where we're going to go. We're going to first start working on the ankle mobility, because the plantar flexion with the toes coming down, that's where those muscles are stretching, is necessary, and also the dorsiflexion, where these shin muscles are contracting, they're shortening, and it's lifting the foot up. But we need that plantar flexion, dorsiflexion to be working really well, because if there's tightness there, that's one of the things that'll contribute to shin splints. And it goes along with that supination and pronation. And here's where we're going to start with all of this. So we're going to do a knee to wall exercise, working on the ankle mobility and the foot and ankle joints mobility. So I'm going to demonstrate here, and we'll do the other angle to give you a different shot. But this is going to be our first thing to do, working on shin splints. So here I've got a box in front of me, but 3 little targets in front, and its weight is going to go on the one leg. The other toes, they still get to keep you from falling over, and you get to hang on to something, whether it's a wall or something like this countertop type of idea. We keep the heel down and we bend the knee forward to touch the target right in front. And you want to find the distance so that you can touch the target, but the heel is just staying down. If you're way back there and you go to reach the knee and the heel is coming up, that's just too far. So you want to find that sweet spot distance that you can keep the heel down, reach the knee forward, touch the target, come back. But then we're going to do, we have these other couple of targets. You're going to angle to the left, angle to the right. When you go to the outer part of the foot, that's where everything locks up, just the joints get kind of tighter, so you don't get to go quite as far. That's normal, that's natural. But we're going to go center, left, right, and as we're going to the inside part of the foot, that's where we get more pronation. When we go to the outside part, that's where we get more supination. And so we want to be hitting all 3 spots, but then we're also going to do rotation. So that's where you're going to keep the knee bent close to the target, close to the wall, and then rotate back and forth, swiping back and forth with the knee, as if, I like to think of this for whatever reason, as if you're wiping your knee on the wall. Your knee is a runny nose and you're trying to wipe your runny nose on the wall, but it's your knee. So swiping back and forth. Now, to give you just kind of that different view, using a wall here, same idea. You have the couple of targets. We're going straight forward, go over to the left, over to the right. And as I said, when you go to the outside, this is where I'm running to kind of the limit of my ankle mobility in that direction. The heel just starts to come up, but you want to just kind of adjust it. So we want to get as much motion out of the ankle as possible without having the heel come up. And that's going to be our starting point. So we're going to begin there, and then as we go into the part 2 and part 3, working on these shin splints, we'll kind of build and progress. We're going to work on some of the plantar flexion and dorsiflexion on the next one, and then we'll get into more of the whole body movements, tying the rest of the kinetic chain together. So if you or anybody that you care about is having some shin splints that's holding them back, that's not letting them run and have fun with sports and the fun things to do when you're out using your legs, if shin splints are holding you back, don't sit at home and suffer, but come on into Kineci and let us figure it out and come up with a plan to help you move forward so you can do the fun things in life that make you happy. Okay, until next time, keep moving, everybody.